Welcome back to another episode of Hunting with a Passion podcast. Y'all noticed that Jeremiah is back with me on the podcast. We also have a special guest coming later. But I just want to announce before our special guest gets on, Jeremiah is joining Hunting with a Passion and help us this year, hopefully get some content there in Missouri. And then we're going to meet up in Indiana, do some deer hunting up there. So we're happy to have you with the team this year, Jeremiah.
It's good to be a part of it. Looking forward to it. A lot of new challenges with doing some video on this year. I've always talked about it, never done it, so we're looking forward to that. I think we can get it done.
Yeah, and maybe we can plan some later hunts together. I've had some ever since we've been talking about this. I've had this in my mind of like maybe coming down there and duck hunting or getting you up here turkey hunting or something like that. Today's guest is Aaron Warbritton with the Hunting Public. I'm super excited to have him on. He should be coming on here in a few minutes or in a few seconds or so. Right. Well, welcome to the pod, Warb. We're happy to have you here. I'm Seth. I'm the one that's been talking to you. This is Jeremiah Collier. He is from Missouri, right, Jeremiah?
Rock on,
Yes.
dude. Nice.
Southeast Missouri.
Yep.
Heck yeah.
So we're gonna start with like a little icebreaker just to try to just get things going here. I'm from Pennsylvania. I hunt like the central Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania area a little bit. I'm originally actually from Tennessee, but moved up to PA with my family and stuff. So first question I have for you is, what is your favorite animal to hunt?
Probably elk.
Elk?
If I had to choose one, it'd be elk.
Okay.
And then deer and turkeys after that, I would say. But I like duck hunting too. I mean, I used to do that a lot more when I was younger, but as I've gotten older, there's less and less time for it each year.
Yeah. So the next question is, so a lot of guys, especially us here in Pennsylvania, we like to hit the gas station on the way to the stand, and I'm usually picking up maybe an ice coffee, I'm getting big on those what are they called? Not Starbucks, the new Black Rifle iced coffees. I'm getting addicted to them. But what are you hitting when you hit the gas station? Like, are you getting an energy drink, hot coffee guy, or
I'm just a hot coffee.
hot coffee
Sometimes
guy?
I make a Jake Hibschman special with some French vanilla in it or something like that. But most of the time, it's just regular black coffee.
Nice.
And water or like a protein shake drink or whatever.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Last icebreaker question. I think I know the answer to this, but what bow are you shooting this year? And like, if you want to dive into like the specs that you're shooting with, like the sights and arrows and stuff like that.
I'm shooting a THP Adapt from Bear Archery.
Your new one that came out?
Yeah, I got a new one this year that's in Mossy Oak Bottomland, but it's basically the same exact bow, the one that I shot last year.
Okay.
Like I got the one I shot last year just sitting right over here up against the wall right now. I've still been plinking around with it some, but all the accessories are the exact same. I've been shooting the Trophy Ridge Sync MD drop away for a few years, hot wire sight. And then I recently went to their 2-piece Versalite quiver, which is it can be either a 1-piece or a 2-piece. And
like the bottom and the top disconnect? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now the quiver is attached to my bow and I shoot with it on all the time. I used to be completely opposite and I wanted a detachable quiver, when I was hunting mostly out of tree stands. It made more sense because you climb up there and you just hang up your quiver.
Right.
But then after I went on a few elk hunts, what's that?
I said they usually like get in the way up in the tree sometimes.
Right. But after I went on a few elk hunts and I realized like I got to have this quiver on my bow for those for the most part. I mean, there's other ways you can do it. There's all kinds of ways. Each person's different, but anymore I hunt on the ground some and in the tree some. So I just leave it on there all the time.
Gotcha.
Just get used to shooting it like that.
Yeah. What type of arrows and broadheads are you using this year?
I've shot the Sirius Apollos for the last couple years, and I really like them.
Okay.
But I changed to their Gemini this year, I think, the Sirius Gemini.
Okay.
It's a little bit smaller shaft with a slightly different insert.
Are those
But
ones you have to
that's,
like get online?
yeah, you can order them from Sirius online. They build them for
Oh,
you.
okay.
And then I've been shooting a new Magnus 150 grain head, which is like a $50 to $60 for a 3-pack head. The one that I've been dabbling with, Magnus will have out here in the next month or so. They may actually already have the new head on their website,
Okay.
but
Cool.
I shoot their new head, and then I shoot their 150 grain stinger, and then I shoot a 150 grain cutthroat single bevel.
Gotcha. Cool.
So I just kind of dabble with all those different ones.
Gotcha. See what
Do
works.
you shoot? Do you shoot like the 150 grain more for like a elk or a hog or something like that versus a deer? Or do you use the 150 grain for the deer?
I use 150 grain for the deer.
Okay.
But as I've gotten to think about the arrow and broadhead thing more, I might I might change my setup a little bit the further south I go. Because like if you encounter a mature buck, for example, in Alabama or Georgia, for the most part, their skeletal structure, their body size is substantially smaller than one up in the Midwest. You're talking,
Yeah.
you go and then up to Canada and the extremes of like northern Minnesota and North Dakota. These are like huge, huge body deer.
Yeah. Way
There's like
bigger. Yeah.
oh yeah, like there's, huge difference in the size of those deer versus the deer down south. So, whenever we get involved in the arrow and broadhead debate with folks all the time, and people comment on our videos like, you don't need 600 grains to shoot a deer down here in Georgia. I'm like, yeah, I'm well aware of that. But, some of the bigger body deer up in the Midwest, and you can kill them with other setups too. They'll work just fine as long as you hit them in the right spots. The main thing. But yeah, I've been dabbling in basically different weight setups and different broadhead setups for different animals. I mean, but I really like the single bevel heads. I've been shooting them for a couple years now. It's a good catch-all for me.
Gotcha.
Everybody's a little bit different in their opinion and everything else about it too.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, dude. I mean, and that's
what works for you. Go with it.
That's right, 100%.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So before we start talking deer and stuff, I listened to your podcast on the Hunter podcast with Jeremy Flynn and Jared, and you were talking about the getting active in the government with like the different laws that they're trying to pass. And I really like appreciate your stance on that, and you trying to keep it in the school, like the archery in the schools and stuff like that. Can you mentioned a company? I can't remember which one you said on social media. You're talking about that he's very up to date on that, and he talks about like different issues that are coming up and stuff like that. Can you plug in that a little bit?
Yeah, Howl for Wildlife is what it's called. And I think that's their website is Howl for Wildlife, HOWL.
Okay.
But they basically have a mailing list that you can sign up for, and they send out advocacy mailings about what are the hot button issues in various states. And then they create a full action page where, if you want to go and voice your opinion, for anything that's pro hunting, they basically draft the emails. They know who all of the contact people are within the government. Then you can go in there. All you got to do is just, send a quick email. It literally takes just a couple seconds because they have the email already drafted. You could draft your own. Like if you wanted to add your own personal spin to it, you could certainly do that. But if you're pressed for time and you're just trying to, make your voice heard,
right?
They already have an email drafted up that's pro hunting.
Gotcha.
And most of the stuff they get involved with it's not like the petty stuff that we as hunters argue about, like the arrow and broadhead debate thing.
Right.
This is stuff that all of us can agree on. Like, I mean, the majority of hunters are going to be for hunter ed and archery in schools for kids. The vast majority of us.
Gotcha.
So that's a big issue that they've been dealing with lately.
Yeah, I was listening to that. Go ahead.
I would think it'd be even beyond like even just hunters, even just people. There's plenty of people that just like to shoot bows, like to be outside. they're not necessarily against hunting; they just don't do it. And so, yeah, that's a great thing. You get a lot of people on board and actually agree on something, and
Right.
for a worthy cause. So that's good.
I think you mentioned habitat too. You're talking about like helping habitat better for like even just hikers and stuff like that. I know there's some areas where I live, a lot of the public land, like it's good for like if you're hunting and stuff like that, but it's not really good if you're hiking because like a lot of stuff's overgrown and they just don't take care of a lot of it. And I feel like that it's something they could, because we, as you know, we have the game commission. And it's a little bit different, I know, in each state, and we have a certain budget that we can use and stuff like that. And I just feel like we could be doing more to help make it more for everybody, not just hunters, like Jeremiah said, but for other people too, to enjoy the outdoors.
Oh yeah, we're big into the habitat stuff. I'd love to see more and more states adopt the habitat stamp or a habitat and access stamp that has got funds that are earmarked to use for that.
What exactly is
you know,
the habitat stamp? You want to dive into that a little bit?
Well, there's a few states that have one, and like you mentioned a minute ago, a lot of them are different. So it's hard to kind of generalize it too much because every single state operates a little bit differently. But for the most part, like Arkansas has their. I'll just use an example. Maybe that's the best way I can explain it. Arkansas has their Arkansas turkey stamp, and it's a voluntary stamp that anybody can buy. I think it's like $9.50 or $10 or something like that, and you're not required to buy it. I actually kind of wish you were required to buy it because they would sell more of them, but that's just my own, thing. Anyway, it's a voluntary stamp. People buy that stamp, and then every stamp that they sell, all that money goes into a pot that has to be used for turkey habitat.
Interesting.
It's got to be it can't be used for anything else. So, they sell a few thousand of those stamps. That's quite a bit of money that they can then put on the ground on public lands in the state of Arkansas to help habitat for turkeys. Because that's the rub with a lot of the agencies. Like, people get disgruntled because they see their budgets and they're like, well, our agency, and this is just as this is different every state. Just depends on the way that it's made up. But, Missouri, for example, we've got that state sales tax. So we've got a pretty sizable budget each year that we can spend on stuff. And some constituents in Missouri, hunters and whatnot, get frustrated because MDC, they want to see them spend money here. They want to see them fix habitat for turkeys, or they want to see them create more access for people and all those things. But the one caveat to that is that when all that money is wrapped up in the general fund, essentially, everybody's sort of competing over it. But when it's and I still wish that they would use more of it, for the things that we're talking about here, habitat and access. But if you have a stamp, those funds have to be used for that. It takes all the guesswork out of it. So, you sell a set number of stamps, and that money is going directly to habitat. At least that's the idea behind it,
Okay.
I'd love to see more states adopt that.
Yeah, that sounds like a good.
More folks get involved with it.
Just as like a hunter, I know you said you didn't have to buy it, but I mean, as far as Missouri, like a duck stamp, you have to buy that duck hunt in Missouri, but that's supposed to go to, duck habitat. But that's good to know when you buy a stamp, it could be voluntary. It's going to it. It ain't no spending your money. Well, I wonder what the government's going to do with this. And so
right.
That's nice to have that. And Arkansas definitely needs some help with, picking that state out. I got some family down there, and there's, they only go to certain areas that's got the most turkeys, but, it's kind of thin down there.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. So, the next question I have, I was sharing this with Jeremiah a little bit about y'all's background and everything like that. But for some people that don't know, I've heard it from different podcasts you've been on with the Sequel Boys not too long ago, talking with them, and I heard it. That's where I first heard it, because I had actually no idea how the start began. But you want to give a little bit of a background, just how THP got started?
Yeah, all of us were working in the hunting industry before for Midwest Whitetail, creating online videos. in web content and stuff. So I actually worked for Bill Winky at Midwest Whitetail for like 7 years before we eventually started the Hunting Public. And that's where we really sharpened our skills on video production and video editing, especially video, more specifically, video production for the internet. So, like we were talking about a minute ago, the professional thing, everybody like thinks we're professional hunters or whatever, which couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
If we're professional at anything, it's editing videos.
Right.
But we just love to hunt, and that's what we do, obviously. So, anyway, worked there at Midwest Whitetail for a long time, and then when we left there, we were all kind of starting to think about going our separate ways and doing other things, and still dabbling in the video stuff. But then we just sat down at Greg's one night and just kind of hashed out a plan for the Hunting Public. We thought of the name, and it's just the general public that hunts, right? I mean, the basic general public that hunts, just like us, average folks that either hunt small properties on permission or public land or whatever.
Right.
And we're like, man, there's a lot of other folks out there just like us. We should try to create content for the general public that hunts. And then we were like, well, let's just call it the Hunting Public, and let's, make a logo or whatever and start a YouTube channel. And me and Greg had a few $1,000 a piece that we threw in to get a camera and some computers and stuff. But we didn't have no money or anything. We started running around the countryside and just making videos and putting them on YouTube, and didn't really know what the heck was going to happen. We didn't have any major big aspirations for it, other than we just wanted to create content for the viewers.
Right.
Like we wanted to make hunting videos for them, not for sponsors, not for, our own egos or industry folks or whatever. We just wanted to make basically hunting videos for the regular guy, and see where that took us. I mean, we never envisioned that it would grow to be what it is now. But it was something that we had a, obvious passion for. So we just kept dabbling in it. And in that first year or so, we were working all kinds of other side jobs just to kind of fund our hobby, which was making YouTube videos, because it wasn't making any money or anything like that. I think we went down to the ATA show the first year. We had like 10 or 11,000 subscribers, and we hadn't made any money or anything. And we weren't walking around like looking for sponsors or anything. We were more so just going down there to learn, and talk to some other folks like the Hushin guys that were in the YouTube space, and see if like we could learn something from them and what they were doing. And they were awesome. I mean, I'm sure you heard that in the Seek One podcast. Like,
yeah,
that's
that
the
was
beauty.
a really
That's
neat
what
story.
yeah, that's the thing we really love about the YouTube sort of ecosystem. I mean, I have my reservations about all social media. It's definitely got a bunch of cons and some pros to it, but
Yep.
one of the good things about the YouTube ecosystem within the hunting channels is that it's collaboration. Like, you work together, you're not really competing with each other.
Right.
And I came from a world in the hunting industry where you were competing hard against show A versus show B or whatever else. And,
Yeah.
Sponsors are competing against each other all the time. And I just didn't like that near as much as as the YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
So like I walked up and started talking to Eric Chester at Hush, and he was just an open book. He was like, yeah, man, I'll help you however we can. Here's my number. Give me a call. He's like, I know you're only at 10,000 subscribers now and you're getting a few hundred views and whatnot. But he said, people definitely like your content and it's helping a lot of folks out there. So keep doing what you're doing and we'll help you as much as we can.
Yeah.
At the time they had hundreds of thousands of subscribers and millions of views every year. It's like, he didn't need to waste his time talking to me. He could have been doing anything else, but instead he took time out of his schedule just to sit there and talk YouTube with us for a while.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. And those guys have all been like that. Like, we always work together.
Yeah. And that's the way it should be. Like, I know what you're saying, like with all the competition and stuff like that, but like, I like how in this, like in the hunting world, you should be able to help one another. Like, you should be able to give advice. Like, I was looking at going to hunt a certain part of Indiana this year, and I just reached out like on a Facebook group chat. And I was like, "Hey, can any idea, any advice on like from a non-resident hunting Indiana?" And they're like, "Oh, there's no deer here. Don't come here." It's like all the comments are like brutal. And I'm like, "Guys, we're
Yeah,
supposed to be helping each other out. Like, I'm
yeah.
not gonna shoot your deer. You know, I'm gonna shoot what I'm gonna shoot, but like the advice would be nice, you know."
That's like when you get on MDC and hey, where's everybody been killing the ducks this year? And all you do is get made fun of. So no,
Yeah.
it's just best not to get on there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Pretty much. But I appreciate like about y'all. Your show is a little bit different YouTube channel and stuff, and you guys feel like you guys do a good job of portraying just the regular guy. Just even just most of the people hunting public land, I feel like is the kind of the weekend warrior, if you will, just the average guy. You guys show more than just the hunting show. You go show a little behind the scenes, and people really like that, and just the cutting up part of camp, and just you guys just camping out. Your stinking burritos are they crack me up a little bit. But hey, you make what I do, and because me and my brother we went to Nebraska this spring, first time just to hunt Marions, and that was a big bucket list for myself and him. And man, you're just packing things in your turkey vests and little protein bars and everything else, heading out there and just doing what you can. And so so I appreciate y'all that you're just simple, getting after it, and it's fun. It's definitely fun to watch.
Yeah, it's easy for us to make because that's just who we are, you know. And when we started this, we got told all the time, like, oh, if you guys don't kill a certain number of big bucks or a certain number of deer, that nobody's going to watch, nobody's going to care. And we're like, well, we don't really care. We're just going to do it because this is what we do. Like, we're just regular dudes. Like, I don't have 2,000 acres to go manage and hunt big deer on. Like, more power to you if you do. I don't have a problem with that. But I don't have that. So maybe I will someday. I don't know. I doubt it. I'm probably just gonna, just keep hunting public land and ground on permission for the rest of my life because that's what I got access to.
Yeah.
But that's where a lot of people are at. That's what we noticed is, man, people, even in videos where we don't hardly even see a deer, people still like it that we're putting out that content because it's real. It's like the truth of what happened, you know.
People
we
get
went on a
tired
5-day hunt and we didn't see hardly anything for 3 of the 5 days.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just reality.
Yeah. People get tired of seeing like, I got told this too, like last year, like all the stuff that I would post was like, oh, every time I saw a deer, I'd post, but I hardly ever posted about not seeing anything. And I forget what hunt it was last year that y'all posted. I can't remember what state it was, but you were just showing like, you just sat in the stand, you're like, okay, we saw a couple squirrels and that type of thing. And you're like, well, we'll see what we get tomorrow. And I'm like, that's the exact hunter that I am. So I appreciate, like Jeremiah said, the way you guys portray. And I know, like, when I watch you guys, like, the way Zach is on the video is the way Zach is in real life, I'm sure. So I just appreciate you guys, like, being, like, you definitely tell you're not faking it and being whatever, your true selves.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, man, we appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah. Next question is, this is from Jeremiah. What stands, I know you guys are leaning more towards the saddle hunting and stuff like that lately, but what stands, whether it's climbers or hang-ons, that you guys recommend? This year I actually, this was the first year that I actually hunted out of a hang-on because I grew up hunting my pap's farm, and he had those homemade wooden stands with a nice extended ladder chained to a tree or anything sketchy, like a couple shooting boxes and stuff like that. But what type of hang-ons or anything like that would you recommend for hunting public?
There's a bunch of real good ones out there. There didn't used to be, but there's definitely a lot of good mobile options now. We've dabbled with the Beast stand a little bit. That one's pretty slick. It's light. And then the one I've got right now, I believe, is an XOP. It's like their smallest one. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like 6 pounds. It's tiny, tiny. Okay. But I'm using my saddle with it, and that makes the platform a lot more usable. Like, If you're just using a deer stand with a regular safety harness, you got to pretty much stand flat on the stand.
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
if you're using a saddle with it, then you can lean away from the tree and you can actually put pressure on the sides of the stand and like move around the tree, which gives it a lot more usable space. So
Gotcha.
then on top of that, we use those Predator platforms from Tethered all the time.
Yeah.
Um, Often, I
How
mean, that's all we're standing on up there is that platform.
yeah. How high do you normally hunt? I mean, I know that's a big thing, preference this and that. But public ground a lot of times kind of got under the wraps of a lot of pressure deer, and you might have in the mindset, man, I got to get up 30, 40 feet, whatever it might be. So like how high have or how, quote low have you been in a tree and got away with it and thought, why do I need to go any higher?
Oh man, we've hunted 3, 4 feet off the ground, just
Really?
barely high. Yeah, I mean, not even a stick. Just hit one limb and then in the platform you go, literally chin height. And we've had them
Wow.
walk right past us. But it all depends on the setup, really. So, like if you're in southern Missouri and you're hunting big woods down there, for example, like big open hardwoods, if you're 12 feet off the ground in a pretty open tree in November after the leaves have fallen off, you're going to be stuck out like a sore thumb up there. So you may need to go really, really
Yeah.
high, or you may need to hunt low in a brush pile or something like that, off even on the ground. So it's hard to say. On average, I'd say we're about 15 feet,
Yeah.
14 to 16, 15, somewhere in there.
That's roughly what I hunt mainly. And but I just thought I'd ask, see what you guys maybe got away with before in the past.
Yeah,
See,
we get away with a lot of various setups, but man, we do get busted more than the average person because there's two of us every time. So that's double the
yeah,
movement, double the scent that's in the air. Like I've noticed self-filming even over the last few years that I don't get busted like winded as often when I'm self-filming as I do when there's two of us out there because there's
I
twice
see.
the amount of scent.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, it adds a little wrinkle to it.
It's all part of it.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Nice. So the next question I have is, when is your favorite time to hunt whitetails? Whether it's early, the rut. I know a lot of people say the rut. Late season. What's your favorite time to hunt bucks or deer in general, and why?
Probably October. Um, the
Yeah,
weather's starting to cool off. You got some really good weather. It's just pleasant to be out there. If you catch it, if you're hunting after a frost, you don't have to deal with ticks there's much. And there's not near as many hunters that go to the woods in October because everybody's saving their vacation for the rut.
Right.
And I like
yeah,
hunting the
for
rut.
sure.
The rut's great, but I can be more strategic in October because we're mostly hunting buck bedding and scrapes and that sort of thing. Yeah, we're just hunting in areas a lot of times where there's not other people, and like I said, the weather's great.
Yeah.
And if we've got multiple days, I mean, you got the whole month basically, and just things are getting better and better all the time.
Right.
I like that. I like October a lot just because they're more patternable.
Yeah. They're still thinking
Like
feed like the whole time. They're thinking food.
yeah, and they're starting off, but they're also as it gets closer to Halloween, they're starting to think about does, so they can be predictable in that sense, but they haven't broke clean loose yet to where they're just running all over.
Yeah.
So you can still figure them out. I feel like at least me, everybody's different. I have better luck figuring them out in October, the big ones, than during the rut. During the rut, it's like, man, you never know what could happen on a given day. You could you could think about strategy all you want and beat your head against a wall and not see a deer. And then you could go out there and throw caution to the wind and just set up in a random spot and shoot the biggest buck of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just a roll of the dice. There's obviously things you can do to improve your odds, but I
Yeah.
really like October. That's my answer.
Yeah. Me and Jeremiah were talking about this on a different podcast, but I was telling
yeah,
him like last year. Like I said, I sat in ladder stands like all the time. I went 5 weekends in a row, like Friday, all day Saturday, like all day sits. I saw 0 deer, nothing. And I was like, something's not right. My camera's saying deer are coming in here. What's going on? And I found like after like reading a lot and watching you guys a lot and just listening to a lot of different podcasts, and talking to some other guys, I'm like, I'm basically playing defense. Like I'm sitting there in a tree. Why am I not playing offense? I think Zach's touched on this a little bit on some of y'all's podcasts. I'm like, why am I not playing offense? And so I'm like, I sold all of my ladder stands except one. I saved a giant 2-man that I like to take my wife and my boy out. Well, this will be his first year to hunt, but well, at least to sit. He's only 5 months old, um, I sold all of them with that one, and I'm like, I'm gonna go mobile this year for the first time and just play like a chess game and just try to figure it out and just try to see where they're going and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to, like you said, in October they're a little more patternable. So I got a couple spots by a couple cornfields and stuff like that, but I also have like a spot in the back of my mind that I have set up because I know it'd be good for the rut with them running everywhere. It's by a creek bottom. It's like a corner of a ridge and stuff like that. So I've been seeing a
I
couple.
think that's a smart strategy to take into it. I don't I don't get super competitive about deer hunting, but I think probably the best hunters out there right now are ones that are using sort of an adaptive approach. So where it's almost a mixture of everything that they've learned thus far. So like what you're talking about, where you've got your mobile setup, you're going to move around a fair amount, but you also have got a setup or two that's in a prime spot that you have that thing dialed in. You know how you're going to get in and out of there. You know when you're going to hunt it.
Yeah.
You know how to get out in. All of those things are figured out. Whereas the mobile stuff is riskier, especially when you go into new areas because it's going to take you longer to set up. You're going in blind. You're going to risk bumping a lot more deer.
Right.
But it certainly has its advantages too. Because you can move around, you can catch them off guard and by surprise. So I think the folks that are doing really well that I, follow a good bit now are ones that are employing sort of that multifaceted approach. Just watch out, buddy. Get out of that microphone. Got the dog in my lap. they're basically they're looking for the thing that works best for that particular spot.
Yeah. What works for them and all that.
Yep.
So going into from that, like there's a lot of things, like you said, you like October. A lot of people are like, oh, the October lull, they're not moving, whatever. What are some myths that you have found with going to different states and stuff that you've heard that you've basically broken the myth thing that's not true?
Yeah, I don't believe in the nocturnal buck thing of the October lull. I used to be just full-fledged on that bandwagon,
Yeah.
but I don't believe that anymore. Not after what we've seen.
Yeah. What do you mean by like the nocturnal buck?
I don't believe bucks are fully nocturnal. A lot of people will get a picture of a buck at nighttime on their trail camera in October, and they're like, well, I'll have to wait for the rut when he starts daylighting. But what I think most of them are just too far away from where that deer's bedding. So like you get a picture of a buck at 3:00 in the morning on the 15th October working a scrape. What does that mean? Well, that thing could be bedded 800 yards to a mile away from that spot.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that he's standing up and out of his bed an hour after dark.
Right.
He's probably still up and moving around and doing his thing. You're not in his area. You're not in his zone that he wants to be in. And boy, when you find it in October, they are
consistent.
They are very consistent. I mean, it depends on the buck, but for the most part, man, I mean, that first year we hunted the buck nest in the Midwest Whitetail Days, that was like so many light bulbs went off in that week's time period. Because we had suspicions about buck bedding and how that operated, but we didn't have any actual visual proof of it. We just, we'd always been told, well, bedding area is a bedding area. Deer live there, and they bed there. There's nothing unique about it, really, other than it's thick, and that's a spot where deer like to be and humans don't. So that made sense. But when you really start thinking strategically about buck bedding and how they place themselves in spots within the environment where people never go, there's no human scent in there. They set themselves up where they can observe the pressure from a long distance, where they have water nearby, where they've got multiple food sources close by. They've got access to does, and everything just starts to make sense why they picked those spots. And when we sat that buck nest, I think it was like October 6th or something. Maybe it was even earlier than that. We saw 16 bucks in one bedding area, and 6 or 7 of them were mature bucks stand up in the same bedding area. And 2 of them were absolute giants.
So that's what I think that
all those bucks were deer that we had nighttime trail camera pictures of for years, and we had never even seen them. And then we saw them all in one night. And this is like probably 800 yards away from where we had been hunting a lot. And we just never went back there because we're like, we didn't see any reason to. Right. But in reality, neither did anybody else. And that's why the bucks were back there, is because, they were getting hunted from private land from one direction. They were getting hunted from public land from 3 or 4 other directions, but nobody was going into that little creek bottom that they were bedding in. And when we got in there, they were just everywhere. And it wasn't just that one night. Like, we went back night after night for like a week and a half and consistently saw mature bucks in there. And it got worse each hunt. Like, they were getting on to us. We didn't see 16 bucks every set. The next set we saw like 5 bucks. And then the next set after that, we waited another week and we went in there and we saw 2 or 3. So that just shows you that even if you're not visibly spooking them, they feel your presence in there.